Welcome to Haxby Shed and part 8, the final part of repairing this Elliott 10M shaper. In this video you'll see the machine running and we'll do some test cuts on this piece of old railway line here. But before we let the video roll, I just want to say that Haxby Shed has achieved quite a landmark this weekend, 5,000 subscribers, and that's thanks to you, all those people who pressed that little subscribe button. So I need to think about how to celebrate that. Kind of got some ideas, we'll see. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the video. Moving to the pulley side, there's the thrust bearing. Sits on there. And this shaft here, is the gear selector shaft. But when it's pushed through, it acts as an index for putting this boss on. So you get it on in the right place is what I mean. So that the oil way lines up, because that's where the oil comes out, just there. So you might remember, if you've seen it anyway, the counterboard for an O-ring. I'll just stick it in with a bit of oil. Maybe put a bit on this surface. This is a pretty awkward corner to video. This is the neoprene ring that I've put on, and the idea is that will keep the dirt out of that back bearing. Look at that glove, it's got a hole in it already. I keep nipping them whenever I'm using tools. That's been on about 10 minutes. I'm getting through about 5 pairs a day. Is it just me? That's the end bearing for that shaft. Without this on, this thing just waggles around. 30 seconds after that clip, look. And I paid a lot of money for these. They were about £5 for 100 pairs. Maybe I should invest a bit more. Oh, God, look at them. Bit surprising. With this boss loose, this spins very freely. But when you clamp this down, this gets quite tight. Now I've checked the mating surfaces and I'm happy that this is pressed, screwed right up against its shoulder. So I don't know why that should go tight like that. You'd think this would be line board, wouldn't you, when it was manufactured? Although they are probably just press-in oilite bushes, pre-machined, pre-formed. So perhaps it wasn't line board, I don't know. So I take that out of gear. No, even with it out of gear, it still has quite a tight spot. I guess it's just going to be like that. I have oiled it. Next job is to fit this pulley. Now I don't know if you saw the part where I pulled this off, but it was very tight on that boss. And I had to drill a couple of holes and tap them and make a puller plate to get it off. And it was quite a struggle. But even so, this bearing inner on the old bearings was spinning. Because the bearings were so full of rubbish, they must have been locking up and this was spinning. So it must have been the back bearing, I guess, that was holding it on. So what I'm going to do is warm it up. Now, this bearing area here should be packed with grease. I've actually put in a grease nipple. So I could put this on and then squirt all the grease into it. Alternatively, using lithium grease, I did a test, and this is the grease here. And this is a Mark II Golf rear brake piston, I think. So I boiled some water, put it in a pan up to this level. So this would have been about 100 degrees, and this grease did not deform at all. And when I look it up online, this grease should be good for 130 degrees. Now I'm only going to warm this to about 100, put it in the oven for an hour, something like that, in the kitchen. So I could pack this with grease. Hopefully the grease won't run out, but what I want to do is avoid getting any kind of contamination on this surface here, because I'm going to use Loctite 641 retaining fluid to hopefully stop this spinning. So do you reckon this is done then?
Yeah, it smells done.
Yeah, I think it's done. It did say top shelf. Well, after 1 hour, 1 hour 20 minutes in the oven, seems to be 70 degrees Celsius, 71. I did try pre-greasing the bearings, but they were just making too much mess. I want the surfaces clean for the Loctite. Oh, doesn't work very well. Come on. Oh, gotcha. I just want to say, if my wife is watching, these are not oven gloves from our kitchen. Whatever you might think, no, they're definitely not our oven gloves. Snap ring, which doesn't want to play. Well, that went smoothly enough. I just had to give it a bit of a tap so I could get the snap ring on. There's a little bit of drag, and I think that's probably against the neoprene that I've put on there to seal that back bearing. I did check, neoprene is good for about 150 degrees Celsius, and this is, I don't know, maybe in the 60s by now, because I can nearly keep my fingers on it. You can see the grease coming out just there. Now for the dust cover that I made, I put a little pip on it there, which lines up with this grease nipple. So it goes on something like that. Now I wished I'd made it with a bit smaller hole in the middle, because there's just a little bit of a gap there where dust could get into the bearing. But the thing was, the snap ring sticks out quite a long way down at this bottom as it's positioned there. I could have ground a bit off the snap ring where the pliers go in. Maybe I should have done, but you know, like this, it's still a lot better than having it open like that. Right, let's see if this is any quieter. I think so. I'm going to say so after all that work. I think the belt needs to be just a fraction tighter. Somebody commented that their belt was a B39. Well, I've just checked, mine's a B38.5, but looking at the way the motor sits in that casing, I think probably mine could be a little bit longer. So a B39, yeah, it's probably about right. Here's a question for you before we sign off for today, because I've had enough. Look, I made these T-bolts to fit here. Perfect. 1/2 inch across here. I tried to use them on the side here. They don't fit. This bit, the T part, the cross piece, that's the same as here, but the slot gap is less. Now tell me, why is it less? Is it designed to be less? Was it a Friday job? What I'm inclined to do is to get this off and just put it on the mill, and once I've machined that 1-inch arbor to fit the mill, so to machine it down from 40 to 30, I'll then have a 1/2 inch cutter, and I might just set this up on the horizontal mill and just slice down here to make it 1/2 inch. But I don't want to do it if that was designed for a reason. So if you know the reason, folks, just tell me in the comments, will you? I've just measured this with the calipers, and yep, that's definitely 1/2 inch. And that is 11.9 millimeters, near enough. And if I look up 11.9 millimeters, because I can't do it off the top of my head, 1532. So that's 1/2 inch, that's 1532. The other dimensions of the T are the same, I've just checked them. Now, one more thing to ask you. So here's the other question. What's this for? It's obviously a V. Yes, you could put a bar in it. But how would you clamp it? What would you do with it? This table rotates 45 either side. There's nuts at the back inside here. And they're on slots, so you can only move it, oh, a total of 45. Yeah, that to that, that's what I was saying. What's that for? Let me know if you know. Don't just make up an answer. We can all do that. Leave me a comment. Well, it's just a blink of an eye for you, but it's about 10 days since I did any work in here. I've been on holiday for a week with the family. No internet, no Wi-Fi, practically no phone signal. It was pretty stressful. But I managed to get through it, and I'm back. So, we'll put this clutch together now. I've already put some oil on these splines. The slot is here. I need to put this on with the slot lined up, and the threaded part of the hole at the bottom. Now this peg has a flat on it, So that flat has to touch onto the rod that runs through the body of the shaper. So I need to screw that in with that slot, screw slot, aligned that way. But I've marked it so that I know which is the side with the flat on. And now the spring with a 3/4 head. Power on, safety switch on. I've got to lean across you, I'm afraid. Now then, why didn't the bull gear turn? Because it's not in gear. Now I can put the oiler system on. I don't want to put this cover on, you see, until I can see oil getting to this bearing. Well, the extra bits have arrived, that one, actually from a seller in Northern Ireland. So that one goes there, this one sits in between these two. These are good because you can tighten up that metal fitting there and then you can swivel these to wherever you want them. This is the rule that I got from Dean at Air Cave Shop. I won it in his subscriber raffle draw. Right, 2.5 to the middle, I reckon 2 1/4 of pipe on each side. I'll cut it with a knife rather than side cutters because I don't want to flatten the pipe. Here's something else I've just figured out. You can pull that blue thing back there, look, and then the tube will release. And the tube will release. And the tube will release. It's turning out to be a bit trickier than I thought because this pipe is really quite hard. I've made a gasket. I'm going to put this plate on now and then I'll get the other pipes on. This is nearly impossible to video, but here it is. I'll just put some light gear oil in it to start with and we'll see if it runs down. I don't know if you can see, but those bubbles are moving along very slowly, which is what you want. And I can see it going down in this vessel here. Just a postscript. I made one of these tubes a bit too short, so I've got some more pipe and I've replaced it because it was leaking. Anyway, I've just put some thicker oil in, and I had a comment from somebody saying the problem with these air pipes, air manifold, is that the oil always finds the easiest path and it doesn't always go where you think it is. Well, here we go. This is why I put the bull gear feed on this first port, and you can see that that's the one that's getting the oil first, and that's the most important one. And then the others will get their oil in time because these are just bronze bearings on plain steel shafts. They don't need a lot of oil. It'll be fine. But he is right. With this kind of setup, you don't really know where the oil's going to go. It looks like that middle one is the most reluctant, but it'll get there in time, especially if I'm running the machine. That's on the slowest speed. I had a comment from David in Spain saying that, you know, back in the day people didn't wear these nitrile gloves, not around here anyway. Instead, we used to have this stuff, Rosalex, and it's like a pinky colour, it's a cream, you rub it on, and we used to have to put it on our hands, right up our arms like that. Yeah, it does pong. David, is that stuff we're talking about? Maybe you could tell us. I've put the cover on here temporarily and I'm quite happy this pipe isn't going to get nipped. There's enough of a relief just there for that pipe to drop into like that. Now I think I said before, you get oil pooling in the bottom of here and there's a hole just there for the oil to run back down into the base of the shaper and then down into the bucket that I've got below. But I have just put a little bit of silicone around the bottom of the cover, around there, so that it'll hold that oil, because before it was just running down the side of the machine. It's a bit trickier to get the cover on now with this in place, this shaft, and I've remembered to include the spring because there's a clutch assist spring. Yes, you can probably see it, it's there. So there might be a bit of a wriggle to get this on. Let's see how we go. Keep that pipe down as I do it. It's on now, but I want to make sure I've still got blow through this pipe, which feeds the main bearing. And there is. Low gear is pushed in, high gear is pulled out, but it will pull out further. The teeth aren't engaged. You can't do it without rocking it. I want to improve the method of oiling these rams slideways. Now at the moment there are 2 ball button oilers on each side. They're quite tricky to use. You've got to turn the oil can up like that to oil them, and in no time at all you're sucking up air. Now I've seen people make an oil chamber just to sit at the top here. I think that's a little bit too much, personally speaking. So I'm looking to use something like these flip top oilers here. I got these from you know where, great big bag for not very much, but they are quite poor quality. And they're 6mm thread. This is a 1/4 inch hole. So I'd have to make some kind of adapter, and it's a bit doubtful because 6.35mm hole, 6mm thread, it may just break up. I could make something, you know, which is a bit taller, like a seat to sit on, and overcome that problem, but it's more than I want to do really. I could buy some from the UK. There's a company called Harrison Oilers or something like that, but they want about £8.50 for each of these. I looked on eBay. I can source some from the States, sort of a South Bend. 4 oilers, 1/4 inch spigot, press in, $12. I'd go with that. That's okay. That's about, you know, £10. But eBay wanted nearly $20 to ship them. I mean, that's crazy. You could, you know, somebody could stick them in an envelope. I'm not saying you should. But, you know, why do they have to charge so much? It really discourages trade. Nevertheless, you know, let's give this a go and see what we can do. Well, that's the easy bit done. I'm surprised. I thought that would have broken off. But that's the finished size. Getting the oilers out of the other side, this side of course doesn't come off, so you've got to push from underneath. So I made a peg, find a wedge. Great, done. And the other one. Try not to drop this inside. Whew. I don't know which way those oilers need to point, so I'm going to put the ram on now. That's a lovely snug fit there. Sounding pretty quiet. Let's be brave and lock this nut. Rev it up a bit. I know what that is. Hang on. Or do I? We'll see. Yes, I can hear it now. It's gone, is what I'm saying. Let's see if we've got a 10-inch stroke back then. Find the most forward point, which is about there, I think. And the furthest back is, what's still going? There, I think. Alright, I'll measure that in a second. Remember to take that off. Yep, okay. Get the rule. Can you see 10 there? Trust me, the distance stroke limit is on 0. We got it back. For safety, using a ratchet, just to make sure you don't get liquidized by accident. I've finished the oilers. I pressed them in with a bit of Loctite. I just need to let that set. Well, while that's going on, I'll put the vertical slide on. Well, I suppose after repairing the shaper, the last thing we need to do is see if it actually works. So I've got this old piece of railway line here. Don't worry about the way it's clamped or the way it's set up. It's just for demonstration, that's all. I've set the shaper to a 10-inch stroke just because I can. And then using this lever over here, it's so easy to set this up now. So we'll touch off. It's on the lowest speed, which should give me 20 meters per second. No, 20 meters per minute. That would be too much, wouldn't it? Right, let's get it started. This, test. Okay. Touch off. It's a while since I've used this machine. I need to remind myself, of course. I really don't like using this top slide. Excuse the thumbs, usual problem. Nervous. It's difficult on a long stroke as well. Start there. Come on. Right, that's it. Okay. Put the cut on. Wind it over here first. This is domed, so it'll just cut in the center to start with. And I'll put on a, what do you think? I don't know, 0.3mm cut to start with. And there we go. Set the advance, 2 clicks. Oh, I could put some oil on it, couldn't I? Where's the can? Well, that's pretty smooth, I think. I'll maybe just do the one cut. I only have to prove it works, don't I? Excellent. It's very difficult to get light in this corner, however hard I try. There's about 200 watts of LED in this room. It's still not enough. Well, that's it, folks. I hope you've enjoyed the series. Shaper doesn't look any different, but it certainly operates a lot better. Thanks for watching.